Robert Greene wrote 48 laws to gain power. He told you how to get it. But he didn't tell you what happens after you get it. I've studied men who mastered these laws. Some became emperors. Others became tyrants. A few became wise. Most became alone. The difference wasn't in which laws they used. It was in understanding the price. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you the price Greene didn't write about. Not to scare you, to prepare you. Because power without wisdom is just tyranny with better marketing. Let's begin. The 48 Laws of Power is not a lie. It's not manipulation disguised as strategy. It's a map, a real map to real power. Greene studied history, distilled patterns, and gave you the blueprint. And it works. Julius Caesar used these principles. Napoleon used these principles. Rockefeller, Carnegie, every titan of industry and empire, they all understood these laws, whether they read Greene's book or not. But here's what most people miss. Greene gave you a sword, a sharp, deadly, effective sword. But he didn't teach you the weight of carrying it. He didn't tell you what happens to your soul after you've wielded it for years. That's not his fault. His job was to show you the weapon. Your job is to understand the burden. Modern YouTube is full of people telling you to apply these laws. Use Law 3, Master Law 15, become unstoppable. And I'm not here to tell you they're wrong. They're not. The laws work. But nobody talks about the cost. Nobody talks about what you lose while you're gaining power. Nobody mentions the part where you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself anymore. So let's talk about it. Not to moralize, not to judge, but to complete the picture. Because an incomplete map gets you lost. And getting lost with power in your hands is dangerous. There are 4 costs to power that Greene's book doesn't address. 4 prices you'll pay whether you're ready or not. I'm going to show you each one. I'm going to show you the men who paid them. And I'm going to show you how a few, very few, managed to pay the price without losing themselves. Let's start with the first cost. Cost number 1, strategic loneliness. Law 1 says, never outshine the master. Law 2 says, never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Law 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy. Read those again. What do they all have in common? Distance, emotional distance, strategic distance. The distance required to play the game of power. You cannot be emotionally vulnerable and politically invincible at the same time. It's impossible. The laws demand that you watch everyone, that you measure every word, that you never fully trust anyone. And that creates loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone, the loneliness of being surrounded by people, but unable to be real with any of them. Julius Caesar understood this better than anyone. He had allies. He had supporters. He had a Senate full of men who praised him publicly. But how many could he trust? None. Not even Brutus. And here's the tragic part. Caesar knew. He knew Brutus might betray him. The soothsayer warned him. The signs were everywhere. But he loved Brutus. And love is a weakness in the game of power. So Caesar made a choice. A choice every powerful man has to make. Do I trust and risk betrayal? Or do I isolate and guarantee survival. Caesar chose trust, and he died with 23 stab wounds, the last one from the man he loved most. Now, some of you are thinking, good, that's why you don't trust anyone. That's why the laws exist. You're right. But let me ask you something. If you can never trust anyone, if every relationship is transactional, if every friend is secretly an enemy waiting for opportunity, what have you actually won? You can gain the whole world and lose your soul. That's not a Bible verse. That's a pattern. A pattern repeated throughout history by men who mastered power, but died alone, paranoid, and empty. Napoleon died in exile, alone, betrayed by allies who turned on him the moment his power faded. Stalin died on the floor of his room. His guards were too afraid to check on him. He lay there for hours. The most powerful man in Russia, dying alone because everyone feared him too much to care. Is that power, or is that a prison? Now here's the nuance. Some men figured it out. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, a few others. They played the game of power, but they didn't let it consume them. How? Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome. He commanded legions. He made life and death decisions. He wielded absolute power. But privately, he wrote in his journal. He practiced philosophy. He had a self that existed separate from his public role. He was the emperor in public, but in private, he was just Marcus, a man trying to be good, a man who knew the weight of power and chose wisdom to balance it. That's the key. You can have power. You can play the game, but you must have a private self that remains untouched. A place where the mask comes off. A relationship, maybe one, maybe two, where you are not the strategist, where you are just human. Without that, power will hollow you out. You'll win every battle and lose yourself. So the first cost of power is loneliness. And the question you have to ask is, am I willing to pay it? And if I am, do I have the wisdom to create a sanctuary where I can still be real? Most don't. That's why most powerful men die alone. Cost number 2, constant vigilance. Law 14 says, pose as a friend, work as a spy. Law 31, control the options, get others to play with the cards you deal. Law 48, assume formlessness. What do these laws require? Awareness, constant, unrelenting, exhausting awareness. You must always be watching, always calculating, always 3 steps ahead. You can never relax, because the moment you relax, someone else makes their move. And if you're not ready, you lose. This is the cost nobody talks about. The mental exhaustion of playing 4-dimensional chess every single day, of analyzing every conversation, of questioning every compliment, of seeing hidden motives in innocent gestures. It's paranoia, but it's not irrational paranoia. It's justified paranoia, because people are plotting. Competitors are waiting for you to slip. Allies are looking for opportunity to betray you the second it benefits them. Greene didn't lie about that. That's how power works. But what he didn't tell you is how exhausting it is to live like that. Napoleon understood this cost intimately. He slept 4 hours a night, not because he wanted to, because he couldn't afford to sleep longer. While he slept, his enemies planned. His generals schemed. His allies made deals behind his back. So he stayed awake, reading reports, analyzing maps, writing letters, managing every detail of his empire personally, because he couldn't trust anyone else to do it right. And it worked. For a while. He conquered Europe. He became the most powerful man on the continent. But what did it cost him? His health collapsed. His relationships disintegrated. His mind started to fracture under the constant pressure. By the end, at Waterloo, he was making mistakes he never would have made 10 years earlier. Why? Because he was exhausted, burned out, running on fumes. You can't sprint forever, even if you're Napoleon. The human mind is not designed for constant vigilance. It's designed for cycles, rest and effort, trust and caution, connection and distance. But power demands you stay in vigilance mode permanently, and that breaks people. Stalin provides an even darker example. He trusted no one, not his generals, not his ministers, not even his own family. He had his closest allies executed on suspicion of betrayal. He purged entire sections of the government because he feared conspiracy. And you know what? He was probably right to fear it. People were plotting against him, because that's what happens when you rule through fear. But the cost of that constant vigilance was a life of absolute paranoia. He died alone, on the floor, with no one brave enough to check on him for hours. That's what constant vigilance does to you. It keeps you alive, but it kills everything that makes life worth living. So how do you handle this cost? Can you play the game of power without burning out? A few men figured it out. Marcus Aurelius again, Seneca. These men understood something critical. You can't control everything, and trying to control everything is what destroys you. Marcus had a phrase: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What does that mean in the context of power? It means focus your vigilance where it matters. Let go of what you can't control. Choose your battles. Marcus didn't try to micromanage every detail of the empire. He delegated. He trusted capable people with specific tasks. He focused his energy on the decisions only he could make. And he accepted that some things would go wrong, and that was okay. That's wisdom. That's sustainable power. But it requires something most people don't have: the humility to admit you can't control everything, and the discipline to not try. Most powerful people can't do that. They think control equals safety, so they tighten their grip until their hands are cramping and their mind is collapsing. So the second cost of power is vigilance. The question is, can you maintain awareness without becoming paranoid? Can you stay alert without burning out? Can you delegate without losing control? Most can't. That's why most powerful people are exhausted, paranoid, and one mistake away from collapse. Cost number 3, moral complexity. Law 3 says, conceal your intentions. Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Law 21, play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. What are these laws teaching you? Deception, strategic dishonesty, manipulation disguised as intelligence. And here's the uncomfortable truth: they work. Machiavelli wasn't wrong. Greene isn't lying to you. These tactics have been used successfully by kings, conquerors, and CEOs for thousands of years. But there's a cost to your sense of self, a cost to your moral clarity. Because once you start lying strategically, where do you draw the line? If you lie to your enemies, why not to your allies? If you manipulate competitors, why not manipulate friends? If you deceive for advantage, why not deceive for convenience? This is the slippery slope of power, and most people don't realize they're on it until they're halfway down. Niccolò Machiavelli himself understood this cost. He wrote The Prince as a manual for power. He described, in brutal detail, how to gain and maintain control. Lie when necessary. Kill when expedient. Appear virtuous while acting ruthlessly. But Machiavelli also wrote letters, personal letters to friends. And in those letters, he struggled. He questioned whether the tactics he described were worth the price. He wondered if a man could wield power and remain good. He never found a satisfying answer. Richard Nixon provides a modern example. He was brilliant, strategically ruthless. He understood power better than almost any American president. He used Law 3, concealing intentions. He used Law 7, taking credit. He played the game masterfully, but he lost himself in the process. The same tactics that won him the presidency destroyed him. Because once you normalize deception, you can't turn it off. It bleeds into everything. You lie to enemies, then allies, then advisors, then yourself. By the end, Nixon couldn't distinguish between strategic deception and pathological lying. He lied about things that didn't even matter. He covered up crimes he didn't need to commit. Why? Because the machinery of manipulation had consumed him. So, the third cost of power is moral complexity. The blurring of lines, the slow erosion of your ethical foundation, and the terrifying question, if I deceive everyone around me, how do I know I'm not deceiving myself? Now, some of you are thinking, good, morality is weakness. The strong do what they can. The weak suffer what they must. Maybe. But let me ask you this. If you lose your sense of right and wrong, what are you even fighting for? If every relationship is a transaction, every truth is negotiable, every principle is conditional, what's the point of winning? Power for what? To feel empty at the top? To look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back? A few men navigated this cost successfully. Marcus Aurelius, yet again. He ruled an empire. He made ruthless decisions. He went to war. He executed traitors. But he never lost his ethical core. How? He had a private philosophy, a set of non-negotiable principles that existed separate from his political role. In public, he was the emperor. In private, he was a stoic philosopher who believed in virtue. He drew a line, clear, unmovable. There were things he would do for the empire, and there were things he would never do, no matter the cost. That's the key. You must define your ethics before you need them. Because once you're in the game, everything becomes gray. Every decision feels justified in the moment. Every compromise feels necessary. But if you don't have a line, you'll cross every line, and you won't even notice until it's too late. So the third cost of power is moral complexity. The question is, can you wield power without losing your soul? Can you play the game without becoming the game? Most can't. That's why most powerful people justify anything, because they've lost the ability to distinguish between strategic necessity and moral compromise. Cost number 4, the prison of the persona. Law 5 says, so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Law 25, recreate yourself. Law 38, Think as you like, but behave like others. What are these laws teaching you? Image management, constant performance, the creation and maintenance of a public persona. And it works. Your reputation is power. Alexander the Great understood this. Napoleon understood this. Every successful leader understands this. You are not just yourself. You are the image of yourself that others perceive. But here's the cost. Eventually, the persona becomes a prison. You can't escape it, even when you're alone, even when you want to. Because you've spent so much time, energy, and capital building this image that contradicting it would destroy everything you've built. So, you keep performing, even when the performance is exhausting, even when it's suffocating. Let me give you an example. Alexander the Great. He created the ultimate persona, the God King, unstoppable, fearless, descended from Achilles and Hercules, half divine. And it worked. His men followed him across the known world. His enemies trembled at his name. His legend outlived him by millennia. But what was the cost? Alexander couldn't show weakness, ever. When his best friend Hephaestion died, he wanted to grieve, to collapse, to be human. But he couldn't, because God Kings don't grieve. So he channeled his pain into rage. He burned cities. He executed entire populations, because that's what the persona demanded. He was a prisoner of his own myth, and eventually, it killed him. He drank himself to death at 32. Some say poison. Some say fever. I say exhaustion. The exhaustion of never being allowed to be human. This is the fourth cost of power. The persona you create to gain power becomes the cage that traps you. You can't relax. You can't be vulnerable. You can't admit mistakes, because the persona doesn't allow it. And the longer you maintain the persona, the more it becomes your reality. You forget who you were before. You lose the ability to distinguish between the performance and the person. Modern examples are everywhere. CEOs who can't retire because their entire identity is the CEO. Politicians who can't admit they're wrong because their brand is always right. Influencers who can't have bad days because their persona is always winning. They're trapped. They built the prison themselves, brick by brick, law by law. And now they can't escape without destroying everything. So how do you avoid this cost? How do you build a powerful image without losing yourself? Again, Marcus Aurelius provides the answer. He was emperor of Rome, the ultimate public role. He had a persona, the philosopher king, the wise ruler, the stoic leader. But he never forgot it was a role. In his private writings, he reminded himself, stop whatever you're doing for a moment and ask yourself, am I afraid of death because I won't be able to do this anymore? What is this? The performance, the persona, the role. Marcus understood that the emperor was a job, not an identity. In public, he was the emperor. In private, he was just a man who struggled, who doubted, who failed, who tried to be good anyway. That separation saved him. He played the role without becoming the role. He wore the mask without forgetting there was a face underneath. That's the key. You must remember that power is a tool, not an identity. The persona is a strategy, not a soul. You wear it when necessary. You take it off when safe. But most people can't do that. They become the persona, and the persona becomes a prison. So the fourth cost of power is the prison of the persona. The The question is, can you create a powerful image without losing yourself in it? Can you play the role without becoming the role? Most can't. That's why most powerful people are performative, even when alone. They've forgotten how to be real. They've lost themselves in the image they created. So those are the 4 costs: strategic loneliness, constant vigilance, moral complexity, and the prison of the persona. Greene didn't lie to you. The 48 laws work, but they come with a price. And most people don't realize they're paying it until the bill is due. So what do? How do you gain power without losing yourself? Here's the framework. 3 questions you ask before applying any law, before making any move, before paying any price. Question 1. What do I gain? Be specific, not power. What specific power? Control over what? Influence over whom? A clearer goal means a clearer cost. Question 2. What do I lose? Not just externally, internally. What part of me am I sacrificing? What relationship am I risking? What principle am I compromising? Question 3. Is the trade worth it? This is the critical question, because sometimes it is. Sometimes the cost is worth paying. But you have to make that choice consciously, with full awareness of what you're giving up. Let me give you an example. Law 1. Never outshine the master. You're in a corporate environment. Your boss is insecure. You have a brilliant idea that could save the company. Do you present it? Question 1. What do I gain? If I present it and give credit to my boss, I gain his trust, political safety, and long-term positioning. Question 2. What do I lose? I lose recognition. I lose the ego satisfaction of being acknowledged. I lose the short-term dopamine hit of praise. Question 3. Is it worth it? Depends. Are you playing a short game or a long game? Do you need immediate validation or strategic positioning? There's no universal answer, but asking the questions forces you to choose consciously instead of reacting emotionally. Now, here's the critical part. Some costs are permanent. Once you cross certain lines, you can't uncross them. Once you betray someone's trust, that relationship is changed forever. Once you compromise a core principle, it becomes easier to compromise it again. So you must know your lines, your non-negotiables, the things you will not sacrifice, no matter what. Marcus Aurelius had lines. He would execute traitors, but he wouldn't execute innocents. He would wage war, but he wouldn't commit genocide. He would play politics, but he wouldn't abandon philosophy. Those lines kept him human. They prevented the persona from consuming the person. They allowed him to wield power without being wielded by it. You need lines too. Define them now, before you need them. Because once you're in the game, everything becomes gray. Every compromise feels justified. Every cost feels necessary. Write them down, literally. What will you not do? Who will you not betray? What principles will you not compromise? And then, when the moment comes, and it will come, you'll have something to hold on to, an anchor, a reminder of who you are beneath the persona. The 48 laws of power are not evil. They're not manipulation disguised as strategy. They're a map, a real map to real power. But Greene gave you the map without showing you the dragons. I've shown you the dragons. Strategic loneliness, constant vigilance, moral complexity, the prison of the persona. Now you have the full picture, the complete map. laws and the costs. What you do with it is up to you. You can pursue power with full awareness. You can pay the costs consciously. You can set your lines and hold them. Or you can pursue power blindly, pay the costs unconsciously, and wake up one day wondering who you've become. The choice is yours, but choose wisely, because power is a tool. It can build or destroy. It can elevate or corrupt. The tool doesn't decide. You do. Master the laws, but master yourself first. That's the 49th law, the one Greene never wrote, the one most people never learn until it's too late. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Control what you can, release what you can't, and never forget, the goal isn't just power. It's power wielded by someone still worth being. That's the true mastery, and very few achieve it. Will you?